Well, our society is constructed in the way that it is. And part of what the way our society is constructed means is that to be white is to be considered good and decent regardless of what you do or don't do. It's Black and brown people who need to prove themselves and justify and say that they are good and decent. They have to prove that. So what your question has me thinking about is the way that, you know, in so many ways, you know, having Trump in the White House allowed a lot of white people to feel like they were extra good because he was extra despicable. But the thing is, you couldn't have a Trump if you didn't have, you know, ordinary white people who did not mobilize the moment that he called Mexicans rapists, right? So being an ordinary, good, decent white person didn't mean that you needed to mobilize when he called Mexicans rapists. Being a good, decent white person didn't mean you needed to mobilize when he made fun of the reporter with disabilities. Being a good, decent white person didn't mean that you needed to mobilize to stop him when the grab him by the privates came out. What I hope, and your question goes to the heart of this hope, what I hope is that, and I'm gonna put it in these terms because I want to be crystal clear. In so many ways, Joe Biden represents white mediocrity. He is a mediocre white man who is just trying to get the country to decency. There's nothing really spectacularly impressive about him. Right? I mean, there's a way in which in this country, you don't have to be spectacularly impressive if you're white, especially a white man. This is what I hope. What I hope is that part of what he represents is that being just a good, decent white person means that you actually have to do something. The way that he mobilized against all of the Trump stuff. Because I'm talking about white mediocrity against white villainy. I'm talking about how you have to be deliberate if you're going to be about being good and decent. And that is a lesson Americans have not gotten. We act as if decency is our inheritance. No. You don't live on stolen land and decency is your inheritance. You need to be deliberate about something. So if we're going to have good, decent white people, I need them to mobilize in the face of villainy. So the other thing that this means, and your question goes to it, what I'm hoping is that more Americans understand that because dominant discourse and practice is what it is, violence is baked in to how our institutions work. Violence is baked into how our country runs. When things are going smoothly, someone is being crushed. Just because it's not you doesn't mean someone isn't being crushed. So what I hope is that we begin to understand that just as organized and deliberate as those who are invested in things being exactly the way they are, as organized and deliberate as they are, people who consider themselves good and decent need to be organized and deliberate. It cannot be passive. That is what I hope more of us understand. That is what I hope those who are invested in doing the work begin to understand, that sugarcoating, civil discourse, I need them to understand how those things that we think we can't say in polite conversation are exactly the things that have to be said. This is why I talk about labeling those dominant categories. I need us to see all the violence that's done when those categories aren't marked. So those of us who are serious about changing something need to understand that, yeah, it's going to take some backbone. It can't just be everybody's comfortable, no. Because there's a lot of violence happening in the midst of all that comfort. Thank you for the question.